Week 14 wraps up with an NFC West showdown in the desert with the Cardinals hosting the Rams. When these teams were both undefeated in Week 4, Arizona hammered LA at SoFi and have had the divisional lead ever since. And already with a 2-game lead, the Cardinals can all but put the NFC West away with a season sweep of the Rams. Week 13 for the Cardinals also saw the return of Kyler Murray, who didn't skip a beat after missing the previous 3 games.
Just to be out there, moving around, being myself, just playing a game that I love to play with these guys, it was fun.
As for the Rams, they came into Week 13 hobbling, having lost 3 in a row, despite acquiring star players Von Miller and Odell Beckham Jr. Turns out all they needed to get a little confidence back was a home matchup against the Jaguars, with OBJ once again finding the end zone.
He definitely took his time and was nice and patient on that one. He's a joy to be around, and he's only going to continue to get better.
If the Rams are much closer to the team we saw in Week 13 than the one that went winless in November, they're capable of beating anyone. Can they take an important step towards winning the NFC West and prove they can match up with the top seed in the conference? Or will Kyler and the Cards show they're the team to beat in the NFC? It's going down tonight on Monday Night Football.
Welcome back in. Brady Quinn, Danny Cannell, taking a look ahead to Monday Night Football. Rams at Cardinals here. We got to talk about what's going on, though, for the Rams. Not great news. Jalen Ramsey, Tyler Higbee added to the COVID list. They will be out tonight. Danny, how bad is this for the Rams heading into this one?
It's brutal. I think, too, when you think about the way these, COVID lists come about, sometimes they're a surprise. They're late in the week. How much time have guys gotten up to speed, reps with the one, and I think these are really key pieces here, especially a Jalen Ramsey, who's one of the better corners in the league, and he's going to be such a critical part for this game and helping shut down that Arizona offensive attack. This is definitely not the news that you want to hear. So this is one, though, you just have to have that next man up mentality. You lose guys during games. Backups have to come in without any reps whatsoever. This is kind of life in the COVID era, just being ready to drop, at the call, like get ready to go.
Yeah, I can't overemphasize enough just how big of a deal it is. Just for the matchup of Jalen Ramsey versus DeAndre Hopkins. Hopkins was held out of the end zone the last time these two teams played. And now I think it's really going to change the way you want to go about calling that defense if you're Raheem Morris. You're looking at saying, I got to protect my cornerbacks. I cannot leave them out on the island with DeAndre Hopkins. Otherwise, Kyler Murray will take advantage of that every single time, whether it's Hopkins or even A.J. Green for that matter, or any of the other speedy wide receivers they have. So that's on defense. On offense, though, I think you're also hurting the sense of, we talked about this earlier, how you go about run blocking. With Tyler Higbee, he's more of one of your traditional tight ends. He's good at the point of attack. That changes now with Bryson Hopkins coming in. He's more of a pass-catching tight end, especially going back to his days at Purdue. So, you're probably looking at trying to spread some things out a little bit more. I think Odell Beckham gets a lot more involved in the offense in the passing game. Instead of those targets to Higbee, it now goes to OBJ. Van Jefferson has had one of the more productive past few weeks in the absence of the injured Robert Woods. So I suspect that'll be more of a trend too. Again, in particular with Tyler Higbee being out.
All right, so let's move this into the biggest storylines that we're watching, because already you were a little concerned about the Rams going up against this Cardinals offense.
Yeah, I mean, look, now with their secondary not having a guy like Jalen Ramsey, Kyler Murray's not going to be holding on to the football that much longer. And the tough thing about Kyler Murray is, when you go about trying to rush him, you got to be worried about how you flush him out of the pocket, because he's so dangerous when he is running. And we saw last week, he looks healthy. And so the last time these two teams played, the Rams were able to get Kyler Murray for 3 sacks in that one. However, now looking at the addition of Von Miller, who hasn't as big of an impact as we thought, it's a lot more pressure on that front. So I'll be curious to see if the Rams can get after Kyler Murray. If not, I mean, the way they ran the football the last time with Chase Edmonds, as good as Kyler Murray's looked all season long, it could be a long day for the Rams defense.
Yeah, just piggybacking off yours, you mentioned it there. The Rams acquisitions, they've been solid, right? On the offensive side of the ball. We saw Odell Beckham back-to-back games with touchdown passes. We've seen Sony Michel have a big day last week. This is a different ballgame. Now, Von Miller, to me, is the player of these acquisitions that needs to step up the most. I mean, this is the part of the season where you brought him to produce, and you haven't got that production yet. Now you're playing against one of the potential league MVPs in Kyler Murray, who has been banged up. Like, this is your opportunity to make the difference in this game. So they've and before, it was a couple weeks ago we were doing this, and I said, hey, these moves Les Snead made, but they better pay off. Well, 2 out of 3 have been pretty productive so far. Now it's time for Von Miller to start stepping up and doing his part in a game where they're desperately going to need him. Because if you can't impact Kyler Murray and your defensive backs are going to be on an island without Jalen Ramsey, that can be a big problem. So I think Von Miller has to start stepping it up and making impactful plays for this defense.
Are we counting all what happened last week with the Rams versus the Jaguars? I mean, should that really count? I feel like that was, kind of like one of those like cakewalk games, like confidence builders, Danny. And I don't know if we should count all that production last week for them.
No, because especially when you think about what we know now about Jacksonville, which, we always looked at this team as being not very good. Then you hear about some of their locker room issues, and it looks like they're quitting on their coach. It takes away from it that much more. A win is a win, though. I do think there's something to getting that off your shoulders, but the pressure is going to be right back ramped up. National stage, Monday Night Football, here you go. What have you done for me lately? Everyone's going to look at that Jacksonville win and say, man, what's the best good team you guys have beaten? And they haven't beat a team over 500. So that's the expectation, is let's see you guys beat a good team, which they haven't done since week 3.
Let's try to make some money on this game. Let's go over some props and picks here, starting with first touchdown scorer. Danny, we'll start with you.
I'm going to go to the hot hand right here. And I think you can find some value with Odell Beckham Odell Beckham Jr. I'm going to go with OBJ. Give me a plus 1,000. A receiver's got back-to-back. Now, there is a caveat here. He's never gone 3 for 3, 3 games in a row. But I think in a stage like tonight, where you're going to try to stretch the field vertically, take that shot early in the game, which the Rams have been known to do a couple times throughout this year, you get those scripted plays, you get plays that you dial up just for one guy. I wouldn't be surprised at all if Sean McVay has something special dialed up for Odell Beckham Jr., takes that shot and gets it early in this game.
I love this, DK. We're kind of on the same side here because you had Odell Beckham, I believe, at plus 1,000. I've got Van Jefferson, same odds here at plus 1,000, okay? Especially with Higbee now being out, as well as Darrell Henderson. If you go back and look at some of the targets, that has to go to someone else. Van Jefferson's been the guy that's most benefited from the injury to Robert Woods. We thought it might be OBJ. It actually has been. It's been Van Jefferson. He's got 2 touchdowns the past couple of games, and he's got about 8 targets per game since that injury to Woods. So I suspect he'll be the guy that will be targeted a little bit more in this matchup. He has been so far, and play that nice compliment on the outside to Cooper Kupp with the way they'll go about utilizing him. So plus 1,000 sounds like a long shot, but if the Rams strike first, I love Van Jefferson being the guy to get it done.
All right, let's go back to the Cardinals here and talk about the biggest storyline when it comes to the Cardinals heading into this game. Brady, we'll start with you.
For me, it's like, who can slow them down at this point? I mean, this is the last chance. We thought the Rams were going to be that team to compete within the division against them. If it's not the Rams, is it San Francisco at this point? So it's that. I think the real question, too, is if they'll slow down on their own. Like if they have one of those poor performances where they kind of take their foot off the gas. I don't think this is it. Not in prime time when you're playing against a divisional opponent, but they've looked to be the best team or one of the best teams in the NFL. I think we keep holding our breath, waiting for that moment where we go, oh, it's the same Arizona Cardinals we saw. Maybe that's just not going to take place this year, DK. Maybe Arizona's just that good.
They could be, and I think a big part of Arizona's game plan tonight is going to be, can they shut down Cooper Kupp, who's leading the NFL in catches, reception yards, and touchdown, going for that triple crown, which has only been done by 4 receivers in the history of the NFL. But Arizona's got to love what they saw their first matchup, where they held him to just 5 catches on 13 targets for only 64 yards. Can they do that again? And Vance Joseph deserves a ton of credit for this defense, the job he's done, and Byron Murphy and Budda Baker on the outside will be doing their best to slow him down. And there's always something to me about a guy who's been shut down in a first matchup, what he does in the return. Like, because that can't sit well with Cooper Kupp, and it can't sit well with Matthew Stafford that his guy didn't have a big game and what, is almost an automatic 100-yard receiver. That to me is a storyline, because if you take him away, I know you still have Odell Beckham, who I put an extra generation on him for some reason. Odell Beckham Jr. I know we've got him there, but still, this is his guy. This is Matthew Stafford's favorite target. He's going to want to get him the ball early and often.
When it comes to a Cardinals player prop, Danny, where would you go there?
I would go with Kyler Murray. I'm going to look at Kyler Murray and say over his 27.5-yard rushing total. We saw him come back, have an incredible game in his first game back after missing those 3 games with injuries. I think he's totally fine. I think they took their time because they've had such a successful season. They were able to get him up to speed. Again, big stage. I think any and all restrictions are off. And he isn't a dynamic player. We all know what he can do with his legs. I think that's pretty low. I think he goes over that one. He could get it in one run, too. Anytime you can get that type of value with a quarterback who can pick up the total in one big play, I love that opportunity. So give me the over Kyler Murray rushing yards.
I'm right there with you. You get plus odds too. It makes a lot of sense here for a lot of the reasons you just said. However, that being said, now I'm looking with Jalen Ramsey out. Go find some player props for the Cardinals wide receivers and load up there. I think they're going to have a hard time slowing down this passing attack with Ramsey not being there, in particular just getting off the field on third down and stop those guys in the red zone. So I do love the over for Kyler Murray rushing yards in this matchup, but I'm going to like a lot of other player props too for these Cardinals wide receivers catching the football with this breaking news and Jalen Ramsey being out.
What about a Rams player prop then? Where would you go?
I'm all on the Van Jefferson, train. Not only first touchdown score in this one at plus 1,000, but going over 52.5 yards receiving in this one. I just think he's done that in 2 of the last 3 games. I talked about how he's had that more of an increased role since the injury to Robert Woods. I foresee him having production in this one. In part, it may come in garbage time because they're going to have to come back. I do think there'll be a decent amount of scoring in this one, in particular once they get in the second half. But the bottom line is Van Jefferson should have a big game. A lot of focus is going to be on Cooper Kupp, like it was the first matchup between these two teams where he had a ton of targets, but only 5 receptions on 13 targets. So Van Jefferson's going to be the guy to step up for the Rams.
I don't want to date myself. I played with Van's dad, Sean Jefferson. Great dude. One of my favorite teammates ever in Atlanta with the Falcons. He is a great young pro. I don't know if you guys saw it either, the mic'd up segment with Sean McVay, and they were like, hey, I love you. And he's like thanking him for giving him confidence and believing in him. I mean, he's playing with a ton of confidence right now. I'm going to go with Cooper Kupp over his receiving total, yardage total. I think this is a player, again, just kind of mentioned it, how they shut him down before. I don't think that happens. I think he will get his yardage. He typically is almost automatic over 100 yards receiving at 92.5. I think that's a little bit low. And I would tend to agree with you. I think both Van Jefferson, a prop on him and a Cooper Kupp may come from behind later in this game. So I'm going to take Cooper Kupp's receiving total over there at 92.5.
All right, let's get a pick against the spread there. The Cardinals are favored in this one by 2.5. Brady, what's your play here?
I'm laying the 2.5 points right now. I feel pretty confident about this. I mean, if the Rams didn't get it done in their own house earlier this season. Look, I know it's hard to beat a team twice, but the way the Cardinals did it, you got the sense that maybe it's just a bad matchup. And it doesn't get any better of a matchup when the best cornerback's out, as well as their starting tight end and one of their other running backs, too, to help balance out that offensive attack for the Rams. So I love laying the 2.5 here. If this number creeps up, though, anywhere between the 3.5, 4, then I'm maybe thinking maybe not so much. But the bottom line is this should be one of those kind of signature wins for the Cardinals as they look to try to take control of the AFC West division like they already have.
So I was just looking at our book. I think it is at 3. I gave it a 2.5, so I'll stick with it. But I'm going to take the Rams. I think this is a team that's playing with a little bit more desperation. Arizona, I know they're playing for potential bye and maybe the best team in the NFC, division rival. I do think getting a win, even though it's against Jacksonville, I do think it matters. And I think this is a massive stage for Matthew Stafford and Sean McVay. And I do think they'll keep this one close. And if it's a full field goal, I actually love that pick right there. And I also think it'll be a little bit lower scoring. I mentioned before Arizona's defense, how much success they've had against this team. I think this will be a lower scoring defensive affair. And I love first half. I know I gave out the total for the game, but I also love a first half under here. Teams kind of feeling their way around, kind of getting each other, just kind of feeling the vibe of the game unfold. I would prefer a first half under in this one, but I'll go ahead and take the Rams and the points and the under in the game.
Yeah, as of right now, it is 3. So we'll see. Are you fine with the 3
I'll still leave the 3 points for now.
Okay, and on the
Yeah,
total?
I'm not as confident now that Jalen Ramsey's been out and Tyler Higbee out. Like that, I'm not loving it. But there's also a play in me that's kind of the contrarian because all the money's flowing in on Arizona right now, just, in droves. So I'm going to see. I would wait. If you like Arizona, if you like the Rams like I do, wait, because I think this thing is only going to keep going in that direction with this news being out there.
One thing we do agree on, though, is the under. Second time around, a lot of familiarity, obviously, being a divisional opponent as it is. But I do think you're going to see a lot of, cat and mouse games early in this game. Maybe even the Rams still figuring out, too, what they're doing offensively, considering not having Higbee, not having the running back, too, and seeing how they adjust to all of that. So I like the under for the game total as well.
It'll be an interesting matchup on Monday Night Football. Danny, Brady, thank you guys so much. Chris Hatt. Do you want a sports network that delivers everything that matters about the game? The highlights, the picks, the instant analysis. No yelling, no fake debates, no politics. Hit the subscribe button and never miss a moment.